Marcus Aurelius was exceptional, an archetype so rare it borders on the mythological, a true philosopher king. He ruled over a Roman Empire at its zenith, an immense territory stretching from the misty shores of Britain to the sun-scorched sands of Egypt. From his seat in Rome, he commanded over 30 legions and shaped the lives of an estimated 70 to 80 million people, roughly a quarter of the world's population at the time. This wasn't a reign of placid prosperity. He led his people through the Antonine Plague, a devastating pandemic of smallpox or measles that claimed an estimated 5 to 10 million lives, crippling the army and destabilizing the economy. He spent over a decade on the northern frontier fighting the grueling Marcomannic Wars and faced a harrowing betrayal from his most trusted general, Avidius Cassius, who falsely declared himself emperor. Yet through this crucible of plague, war, and treason, he remained legendarily calm, leading with a profound sense of justice, patience, and wisdom. This wasn't an innate trait, but a cultivated practice, a philosophy lived daily. He created a legacy so powerful that 2 millennia later, his private journal, the Meditations, remains a global bestseller, and people still seek his guidance. To understand how he achieved this internal fortitude, I wanted to walk in his sandals. So for the next 7 days, I will attempt to live like Marcus Aurelius. Honestly, it challenged me far more than I anticipated. I am not a Roman emperor. My world is one of TikTok notifications and social media squabbles, not legions and empires. Yet, the core human struggles remain. Stoicism, his chosen philosophy, has exploded across the modern digital landscape. Scroll through social media and you'll find a distorted reflection of his teachings. AI-generated avatars of Marcus whispering affirmations, fitness influencers deadlifting in stoic silence with memento mori tattooed on their forearms, and, most troublingly, the manosphere twisting the philosophy's tenets on self-control to justify toxic masculinity and emotional suppression. But true Stoicism is not the absence of emotion. It is the refusal to be ruled by it. It's feeling the surge of anger, anxiety, or grief, and responding with rational thought, asking, "Is this within my control?" While producing a documentary on this very topic, a deeper question took root. What if you strip away the noise, the self-help gurus, the trendy merchandise, the digital misinterpretations, and return to the source? Do these ancient ideas still hold practical power, or are they just relics being forced into a world they were never designed for? These ideas come from men who lived in a world without electricity, global communication, or modern medicine. After all, even religions from that era are seeing their cultural dominance wane. But perhaps that is precisely why Stoicism is experiencing a renaissance. In a world saturated with noise, overstimulation, and a palpable sense of existential dread, a philosophy rooted in internal control, purpose, and tranquility might be the antidote we desperately need, but only if it still works. "So what's your plan for creating this routine?" a colleague asked. From what I've read, Marcus Aurelius wasn't exactly filming day-in-the-life vlogs. He was right. Marcus never published a step-by-step guide, but he left something better: the Meditations. This book was his private journal, a series of self-admonishments and reflections where he rigorously applied Stoic principles to his daily anxieties. By studying these entries, one can reverse-engineer his mental regimen and reconstruct the practices he used to navigate his incredibly demanding life. Practice 1. The morning news and the dichotomy of control. The routine begins. Take 10 minutes to go to a news publication and skim the stories. When a story provokes an emotional reaction, anger, fear, sadness, remind yourself that the event is beyond your control. Say it to yourself until the feeling dissipates. Good morning. It is day 1. This first exercise is a direct application of the core Stoic principle, the dichotomy of control. As the philosopher Epictetus, a major influence on Marcus, taught, some things are up to us, our judgments, intentions, actions, and some are not. Everything else, our health, reputation, and the actions of others. The Stoic's chief task is to distinguish between the two and focus their energy exclusively on the former. This is the bedrock of Stoic tranquility. The Stoics believed the universe was governed by the logos, a concept of divine reason, or a rational principle that orders all things. It is an all-pervading force, a cosmic intelligence. This isn't an anthropomorphic god, but a kind of operating system for reality. "I've heard of logos," a friend mentioned. "Isn't that a name for Jesus in the Greek New Testament? While the word is the same, the interpretation is vastly different." The Stoic logos is impersonal, the rational structure of the cosmos itself. In humans, our own capacity for reason is considered a fragment of this divine logos. This belief leads to a radical conclusion. Everything that happens, from a traffic jam to a pandemic, is part of this unfolding rational order. It is not random or chaotic. The causal chain of events is unbreakable and, ultimately, beyond our individual control. Our responsibility lies not in changing events, but in our reaction to them. We can use our reason to suspend judgment on what appears to be a tragedy, acknowledging it is external, indifferent to our well-being, and ultimately part of a larger good we may not comprehend. In the second book of Meditations, Marcus prepares himself for the day with this exact mindset. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, "The people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own, and I cannot be harmed by any of them." This isn't pessimism, it's emotional inoculation. By reading about today's global crises and practicing a calm, rational reaction, I am reinforcing this core idea. These events may seem terrible, but they are external to my moral self and beyond my direct control. My sphere of influence is my response. Practice 2. Digital asceticism and the value of attention. The routine continues. Turn notifications off on your phone. Try to use it only when it contributes to your main goals, such as finding your way to a meeting. A phone alarm blared, shattering my focus. The interruption was perfectly timed. Marcus Aurelius didn't have a smartphone, but he understood its equivalent. The endless stream of trivialities that pull our minds away from what is important. So I began an experiment within the experiment. After a single check-in with the world in the morning, the phone would be turned off, stored in another room, not to be touched again unless for a predetermined, essential task. This practice directly targets what the Stoics called prosoche, a state of constant, vigilant attention to one's inner world of thoughts and judgments. The Roman Stoic Seneca wrote extensively on the preciousness of time, lamenting, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Modern statistics paint a grim picture of this waste. The average person touches their phone over 600 times a day, spending hours in a state of continuous partial attention. A 2018 study found that the mere presence of a smartphone, even when off, reduces available cognitive capacity. As Marcus wrote, we must concentrate on the task at hand, free of all other distractions. By allowing random notifications to dictate our thoughts, we surrender our most valuable resource, our focus, to external events. Unsurprisingly, with my phone silenced and out of reach, my productivity soared, but more importantly, a sense of calm descended. The constant, low-level anxiety produced by the news cycle and social media chatter dissipated. There is nothing like trying to formulate a complex thought while a headline about a distant tragedy flashes on your screen, sending you down a rabbit hole of misery and helplessness. Stoicism does not advocate ignoring the world's suffering, but it insists we do not let it emotionally cripple us. We can have empathy and act where we can, while remaining emotionally grounded. Practice 3. Mindfulness and the power of the present next. Practice mindfulness meditation for 10 minutes. It is known to help you focus, especially with regular practice. On day 3, the value of grounding practices became profoundly clear. One point Marcus returns to relentlessly is the idea of being present. "Stop being jerked like a puppet," he chides himself. "Limit yourself to the present." Our anxieties are born from ruminating on the past and fearing the future, two realms entirely outside our control. The only point of power is the here and now. To cultivate this presence, I turn to a practice developed centuries before Marcus, but with a remarkably similar goal: mindfulness meditation, as taught by Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. Both traditions recognized that the untrained mind is a chaotic storm of thoughts. Meditation is the practice of calming that storm, not by suppressing thoughts, but by observing them without judgment, gently returning focus to the breath. For the Buddha, this was a path to understanding the nature of suffering. For a Stoic, it is a tool to clear the mind for rational judgment and virtuous action. Modern neuroscience confirms the benefits of this ancient practice. Studies have shown that regular meditation can decrease the density of the amygdala, the brain's fear center, while increasing the thickness of the prefrontal cortex, which governs focus and decision-making. I have practiced meditation sporadically in the past, but enforcing it daily this week brought tangible results. I felt more present, less susceptible to distraction, and my baseline level of anxiety noticeably lowered. Practice 4. On pain and preferred indifference. The midday instruction. When you experience chronic pain, such as a pinch in the lower back, remind yourself that the mind does not need to focus on the pain. It has more important things to do. I chose noon for this exercise, as that's when the familiar ache in my lower back from hours of writing begins its daily assault. Marcus, writing in the last decade of his life, was no stranger to physical suffering. He argues that pain is always bearable. Unendurable pain brings its own end with it. Chronic pain is always endurable. The intelligence maintains serenity by cutting itself off from the body. This is perhaps the most challenging and easily misunderstood Stoic doctrine. The Stoics categorized things like health and pain as indifference, meaning they have no bearing on your moral virtue, your goodness. However, they distinguished between preferred indifference, health, wealth, and dispreferred indifference, sickness, pain, poverty. It is natural to prefer health over sickness, but a Stoic must not attach their sense of well-being to it. Pain is a dispreferred indifferent, but it cannot make you a bad person, and thus, it cannot truly harm your inner self, your soul. Acceptable to distraction, and my baseline level of anxiety noticeably lowered. For me, however, this intellectual exercise failed in practice. Telling myself my back pain was a, quote, dispreferred indifferent did little to alleviate the distraction. Marcus's advice felt like a relic from a pre-scientific age. Today, we understand the complex neurological and psychological mechanisms of chronic pain. It is not something to be overcome with sheer willpower. To simply say, fight through it, can be dangerously simplistic and invalidating to those who suffer daily. This is a clear instance where ancient philosophy must be supplemented with modern knowledge. While the mental technique of separating the physical sensation from the emotional story we tell about it has value, a cornerstone of modern therapies like ACT, the idea of simply ignoring it proved untenable. Conclusion: peace over happiness. The final exercise. At the end of the day, write down an emotionally trying experience you had and how you reacted. Take stock of your progress. Looking over my notes from the week, I see a genuine shift. By the fourth day, my reactions to minor frustrations, a delayed train, a critical email, were noticeably calmer. The practices of morning reflection, attentional discipline, and memento mori had genuinely elevated my sense of peace. I will be keeping them. However, I have a major hesitation in recommending a full embrace of this routine. The objective view of pain was problematic. The practice of describing food with cold objectivity, this is a dead pig, successfully stripped the joy from meals, making dinner feel like a mere biological function. This constant objectivity, if applied universally, can feel like it neuters the human experience, But perhaps that is the price of absolute tranquility. It is not a sacrifice I am willing to make completely, and I believe Marcus Aurelius would approve. He was a philosophical syncretist, taking what worked from Epictetus, Plato, and Heraclitus, and weaving it into a functional system. He was not a dogmatist. His philosophy was a toolkit, not a scripture. So, to answer the initial question, can Stoicism help you live a happier life 2,000 years later? My answer is no. Not happier in the modern sense of euphoric, pleasurable excitement. But can it make you more peaceful, more resilient, more virtuous? 100% yes. And in our turbulent world, I believe peace is a far more valuable and worthwhile pursuit than happiness. The goal is not to eliminate the waves, but to become the rock that stands unmoved as they crash around it, and finds stillness in the midst of the raging sea.